Buenas tardes, good afternoon, and welcome to this session about opportunities and challenges in the digital age. It's a pleasure to moderate it and to share it with these excellent speakers. So, first of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Rosa María Martín from the Technical University of Catalonia, and I work in the inlab FIP. And if you want to participate in this session, I will invite you to use the Congress application. You will have an option that is called Ask and Vote. Otherwise, you can use also the webpage and submit your questions during the session. We will also take questions from the floor at the end, but probably it will be easier for you if you use the application. So starting from my left, we have the first speaker, that is Mr. Andy Freire, that is the Minister of Modernization and Technology of the City of Buenos Aires. He was also a founder of different companies, and I think that is a relevant person and a recognized leader for tomorrow. So thank you, Andy, for being here. And also, I would like to congratulate you because you are organizing the Smart City Expo in Buenos Aires next year. So we will all like to be there next year. And please go to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Andy Freire. I'm the Minister of Modernization, Innovation and Technology of the City of Buenos Aires. I was, until 10 months ago, an entrepreneur, mostly in the high-tech sector. So I've been mostly building companies, disruptive companies around technology. And I was invited by the current mayor and the current president, both newly elected 10 months ago, to try to bring innovation and technology to the citizens of Buenos Aires. And one of the main challenges I started facing was realizing the speed at which innovation is taking place in the context of the private sector, and the major challenge that we have in the public sector running clearly from behind in anything that has to do with making life easier for the citizens. In fact, the perception I had when I joined was, and I still have, is that the gap is wider and wider in terms of the private sector improving, and the public sector running as fast as we can from behind. So one of the things we did during these 10 months was to try to set 3 key priorities in terms of how we want to work together, basically trying to find innovations that ultimately will change people's lives. So what we realized is every solution we find or every product we explore, the only question we ask ourselves is how many lives will this change? How much time will people get extra time when they take a public transportation? How many hours of their lives would people save because they will be able to get an appointment for a doctor in a public hospital? We always ask the question of time and money in terms of return on investment for all the efforts we do. And we came up with basically 3 sources of work to try to really focus our energy. The first one being around big data. I'm also in charge of the tourism or the Undersecretary of Tourism in Buenos Aires. One of the things we started to realize, for example, around big data was the fact that we could understand and learn how the different potential tourists explore the possibility of coming to Buenos Aires through the internet, and learn where and when do we lose them in the process. So, for example, just to give you an illustration, we learned that that the majority of the people in California, when they look to come to Argentina, they look to come to Patagonia. They look for the Argentinian Patagonia, and the entry point to Patagonia, to the Argentinian Patagonia, is always Buenos Aires. So people normally come, spend money and time in Buenos Aires, and then they go to the Argentinian Patagonia. So the vast majority of the people in California that like nature look for, on the web, they look and they search for Argentinian Patagonia. Now, when we look for how many of the dollars are spent by the people from California in the Argentinian Patagonia compared to the Chilean Patagonia, 80% of the money goes to Chile, while 80% of the searches on the web go to Argentina. So we get the searches, but the money will go to Chile. And we start realizing, well, why is this the case? And we started realizing that, for example, there is a direct flight from Los Angeles to Santiago de Chile, which we don't have. The only way to come to Buenos Aires is through Dallas. So you need to fly from San Francisco, from LA to Dallas, and then go from Dallas to Buenos Aires. And we start realizing also that the high-end spectrum of offer for those in California is not attractive enough when it comes down to Argentinian Patagonia, because we're more used to, for example, the backpacker from Argentina that goes to the south of Patagonia. So all the use of big data is helping us try to find new ways and new approaches to try to change the way we do things. A second dimension and a second example is citizen-centered solutions. We're developing an application called Mi BA, which is My Buenos Aires, My BA, which is trying to put in one single application all the interactions between citizens and government. You might know this, but on average, anyone in their smartphone would have 37 applications. That's the average number of applications one normally would have as active applications, of which probably only 15 you would use on a daily or weekly basis. And we realized that we had too many applications from the city of Buenos Aires, one for disability, one for pregnant women, one for vaccines, one for making citizen participation, one to ask for an appointment at a doctor in a public hospital. And we said we need to bring all of that down to one single application that will make lives of the citizens easier, having one portal through which they can do anything they want to do. Pay a parking ticket, give an opinion on what we need to do with the future of the Buenos Aires Zoo, or simply complain about a traffic light that isn't working. So we're working on that particular application, which we believe will give a lot of traction, a lot of participation from the citizens, and we're trying to use more and more the participation of the citizens in every decision we make. For example, under my ministry, with the support of the mayor, we decided to shut down the zoo of Buenos Aires as it was. It was like that for 140 years, 1,500 animals in the middle of the city in cages, and using the animals in cages as a way to educate our children. We decided to shut down the zoo and transform it into a technological eco park. But in order to get there, we asked the citizens what they wanted to do with that zoo. And we got over 51,000 projects from the citizens of Buenos Aires saying what they thought we should be doing with the zoo. Through big data, we narrowed all of that into 3 concrete projects, and we use those 3 projects as part of the information that was required for all the urbanists participating in a contest for urban projects of innovation for the future zoo. And they were supposed to integrate the opinions of all the 51,000 projects that participated in the process of giving their opinions. So we're trying to find ways to create these citizen-centered solutions that are basically ways in which citizens can feel closer to the government and not far away from the government. The last one has to do with smart mobility. Some of you might have been when we made the announcement yesterday in the main presentation room. There's 3 million people that live in Buenos Aires. There are 3.5 million people that come every day to Buenos Aires. So we double the number of citizens during the day. And we have major challenges around mobility that we need to work on. So we're trying to develop new and more solutions that are basically going to allow for people to predict when the bus is coming, to know more effectively where they can go and how they can go using public transportation from one place to another. I'm running out of time, so I'll wrap up. The most disruptive project we're working on is trying to change the way we work internally as a government. So we have some principles around innovation, like break it even if it's not broken, take calculated risks, acknowledge innovation and disruption, even if we fail fast to learn faster, and see the lack of knowledge as an opportunity to learn. We're trying to make a major transformation inwards, because we believe that the only way we're going to be innovative in the outside is if we innovate internally. We have 150,000 public employees in the government of Buenos Aires. Imagine the challenge of shifting the mindset of 150,000 people. Well, that's something we're working on. So an example of that is this is how the office looked like 4 months ago. This is how it looks like today. This was a meeting room that was supposed to be a meeting room. Now it's a place where we have a ping pong table, a football table, and those are the kind of things we're trying to create in an environment where people are totally unused to this kind of environment. This is an example of a wall that was painted using just a secretary's talent to paint a wall instead of using a typical frame or pictures or decoration. We're trying to make that disruption become part of the DNA of who we are internally in the government offices as a way to be able to change the way we look externally. So thank you very much. I hope you have questions and potential solutions to some of our problems, and I look forward to them. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mrs. Inge Rocker. She's the Vice President of 3D Experience City, and she's been a Harvard University professor working in the graduate school design, focused on architecture and urban design projects. So thank you.
Is it starting automatically? Okay. So I'm happy to be here, thank you. And I would like to discuss with you today a 3D experience city, which is maybe a smart city, but it's really about experience. It tries to bring together citizens, businesses, and cities, of course, in a joint experience. So I think if we look at the challenges of today and the opportunities at the same time, we can see on one hand we have huge challenges through population growth and scarcity of resources, and I think for that we need to look into a cyclical understanding, a system approach of how we live and work, but what it also means, what we consume in terms of resources. Very linked to that is then the ambition to bring technology in that is then enabling us to digitize these processes and to capture them somehow, to create a pendant from the real to the virtual and vice versa. So in that sense, we can talk about an urban digitization. However, as I already mentioned, I would like not to focus on this kind of rather technical approach, sensor-driven, data-driven approach, but I would rather like us to think of experiences. Why? Because I believe strongly that only with experiences that we create, jointly create, collectively create, we enable us to understand and realize what each of us has an impact in the totality of what we do and where we live in. So there are key transformations, such as, for example, that we are having technologies now that enable us to comprehensively map and simulate the processes of the geosphere. We have a growing world population that increasingly lives more in urban settlements. This has a significant impact on how we probably should settle. It's remarkable that we still plan as if we are in the 20th century, the beginning of the car culture. Urban population requires comprehensive global and local management strategies. We heard a little bit already about it. It's an overwhelming realm of activities that pour into the cities that need to be coordinated and choreographed in a probably slightly different manner than at this point. We have, however, systems and multi-system analysis that enables us to do that, and we have the capabilities to collect the data, to undo the silos, and to bring this all together into a coherent data referential. Now, as already mentioned, I believe this is not enough. So we see right now a shift from the smart city approach towards what we could say an experience approach, where the intelligence of the citizen and the interaction come to fruition. Of course, IoT, the Internet of Things, brings a whole other realm with us, to us, that is a service economy that enables us to connect things very differently, to change things and their behavior differently, but also to connect with each other differently. So essentially what we will see and what I propose is a change in the lifestyle of how we navigate our life spaces, but also, of course, our workspaces. And finally, very importantly, we involve each other continuously as a continuous feedback loop between city, businesses, and citizens. So we're trying to do this with Dassault Systèmes, that's the company I'm working for, in order to harmonize product life and nature. And we do that with what we call 3D Experience City, which is a unique user experience that is a holistic approach that maps the entirety of the city and brings it together in a three-dimensional model that is based on a dynamic data model, and that enables you to do simulations and analysis as much also it enables you to do your traditional analysis, two-dimensional, any dimension you wish to do. Okay, so it's an integrative platform that is enabling you to use different tools such as 3D modeling tools, simulation tools, social collaborative tools, but most importantly, it brings different parties together. So it is an all-integrative collaborative environment that enables you to do the following. So if we look at this, we're really keen on enabling the citizens to have on handheld devices access directly to the information that is captured. It is not pre-screened in a way. You can select what you're looking at and would like to look at. You have a collaborative environment for those who planning the city, make the city. So it's really an active maker environment where you communicate with your key partners from department to department or from private to public sector smoothly and fluently and frequently. With 3D, you enable here as continuous zoom Crossscales, which we find important because it's a system approach that enables you to link that what you see captured on a regional level all the way down to the detail, if you want, of a single sensor in a location of the city. Here you see also the capabilities in terms of manipulation. You have the possibility to really visualize the environment to all your needs you have. This could be ranging from construction to pipes, infrastructure and so forth, all the way back into the scientific environment where of course we capture the real with sensors. So as you see this is a dramatic conflation between that which is the real with that which is the virtual. And here we can see in how far, for example, drones flying, but also cars moving autonomously over the landscape are combined and connected as in a simulation that is a physical underpinned scientific environment. Of course, analysis of traffic flows as we know them is possible. Planning strategies can be tested out here as we see here. In a use case for Grenoble in this case, where a new tram and mobility strategy was elaborated and visualized for the citizens, but also for all the stakeholders involved. So here you see how a tram converts into a mobile device that then enables to move people, but also freight, of course, around. This is a nice visualization environment in which you can also do fully all-immersive simulations that are actually based on scientific modeling. You can see here a VNR conversion that enables you to understand when you are in certain devices, where you're going, that enables you to access services. In this case, we're looking at parking. You can again apply any type of application you're interested in to this environment. It's super open. It is very collaborative. Any type of third-party application you have can come here together and create a synthetic moment in which you, for example, in this case, understand which parking spots are where available. You can see also here the color shows which type of noise levels are prevailing. With partners that are in the automotive industry, they are developing new type of car parking situations, and all of this comes together here into a coherent, holistic environment. Now, it's very important, of course, to understand what the resources are in order to also constitute a sustainable living. Therefore, of course, sensors are relevant to us to understand the dynamics of the city. And here again, they brought back into this environment in order to be accessible for everybody all the time. So how is this working? It's working on a data platform that is open. It comes with a technology suite that brings in design, simulation, data analytics, and business operation, and any other application of relevance. And we're creating something like the 3D Experience City that could be either one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional. It is totally up to the user, meaning the city, or also the businesses. And then on that, we can launch any type of solution that is of interest. So to recap this, so from data collection to data visualization to navigation, collaboration, to design authoring and simulation, to business business operation and also the Internet of Things, and in particular the autonomous cars. This is a very open environment in which anything that you are interested in doing would be able to do. We make this accessible through dashboards and any type of analytic device you would like to see. I'm happy to talk with you more about it. We have a booth, and you can also contact me, of course, anytime. And I hope with this to really provide for businesses as much as for cities and citizens, a collaborative environment, a communication environment, something that is a device that is so open and at the same time can be so precise that it garners to the needs that every separate city has. So it is on one hand a universal applicable tool you want, and at the same time it is also something extremely specific that targets just your needs in a particular location.
So thank you, Inge. So our next speaker is Mr. Frank Kresin. He's the research director of the Waag Society, and he's also the board member of the Dutch Internet Society. So thank you. Please remember to submit your questions using the Ask and Vote application.
Just a second. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'll talk about my favorite topic, smart citizens making sense. I'm from Waag Society, which is a non-profit media lab in the Netherlands, developing technology for social innovation from the perspective of artists, scientists, and technologists, because we think we need the intersection and also the collaboration of those groups to come up with meaningful innovations. We think that code is culture, so the algorithms, the data, the technology itself is shaping more and more the way we can lead our lives. So it means that we have to have a first-hand perspective on those technologies. We have to become, first of all, fluent listeners, so what does it do, but also fluent makers of those technologies, because otherwise we'll be kind of analphabetics. And that's why we embrace the maker motto: if you can't open your technology, you don't own it. And I think we should take that kind of literally. I'll talk to you about one of the projects that we're in, and that starts from the observation that we live in cities where there are a lot of urban environmental challenges. In the air, in the land, in the water, in the noise. We all are experiencing a lot of stresses from those point of view, and they are important to us. I mean, the urban environment has a large influence on our health. And it's interesting to see that with every new research that's done on what the environment is doing to us, it seems that less pollution leads to a larger impact. So this is something that caters to us all as citizens, as parents, as whoever is living and working in the city. The pollution levels, for example, in air quality, are typically measured with these large, complex, very expensive devices. And they have a high quality, but they're also very sparse. So this is the Netherlands map. We have about 110 of those high quality sensors. Whereas we know that the levels from street to street, from house to house, from square to square, they differ a lot. And therefore also your personal exposure differs a lot. So we need to know more. And that's why we think that citizens have a definitive voice and a role to play in understanding the urban environment and also taking action. And that's what we want to facilitate. Therefore, now 2 years ago, we have started the Amsterdam Smart Citizens Lab. So we're all for smart citizens that take the fate of their communities in their own hand, appropriating technology as they go. We don't do that alone. So we have a large consortium of partners, large players, small players, institutional players, but also communities that think this is a good goal and they work with us towards that goal. This goal is essentially to empower people to acquire, read, and manipulate data by themselves, to understand their environments more and also the impact that their environment has on their health and that of their children, turn their data into action and insights, this all using networks of low-cost, open-source sensors that before, well, they didn't exist a short time ago, and now they do. So we have to make use of that. What we want to work towards and what we want our results should, of course, be better, more engaged citizens, impactful dialogues. So this is a win-win situation because more dialogue leads to more understanding, leads to better measurements, leads to finally better healthy cities. And I think that we prove somehow that everybody can win. We did that first of all by calling out to people, to the local citizens. And we were very lucky, we had a lot of those, and they came for mainly 3 reasons. They like, of course, they're concerned about their environments, they're interested in technology, and they like participation, and that's why they come together to try to do something about it and understand it first. We've used a host of different kind of technologies, open source technologies, like the Smart Citizen Kit that was developed here in Barcelona, is still being developed. We measured the water quality, we measured emotions, so we asked people what they feel, and we used all other kinds of technologies. Finally, to come up with mappings. So our mapping is important because that is the way that you turn data into something that's actionable. And then, of course, talking about it. And maybe that's the most important part. We've had many people in the room for many sessions together, trying to understand what those data means and also what should be done about the current state, and then going to their governments to demand action. We've documented all of this. You can download it for free. I have some paper copies with me. If you're interested, you can come to get me, and the first 5 are lucky, I think. But we have learned a lot, and this is a very important part. To be able to be meaningful in this field, you need to do good issue mapping. So what is actually at stake? Especially in a topic like air quality is a very complicated topic. So you need experts and you need expertise and you need to dive into that topic to be able to do anything. From sensing to interpretation and then to action is very challenging. You can measure something, but what does it mean? So people need help. The sensors themselves need improvement. However, we always found it's not about accuracy. It's about data literacy and the ability to act. And that's why all the citizens that we work with, and there are now about 800, they love it. And there's now comes in the solution to these questions, and it's called Making Sense. And it's a European project that 5 parties started now 1 year ago. It's the IAC, the Peer Educators Network, the University of Dundee, Waag Society, and the Fab Lab Network. And together we try to tackle those issues and come up with a meaningful way for people to self-assess their environments, understand what they're measuring, and then taking action. We do 4 things. We want to achieve 4 things. First of all, it's lacking the technological, trying to work towards the technology boundaries and try to solve them. It's helping people to assess and also increase the data accuracy and meaningfulness of what they're doing. It's catering to public awareness, because most people, I don't know about you yet, but most people are unaware of the large impact this environment has, and of course the social interactions. We do that in 9 pilots in 3 different cities, and we are 1 year ahead now, so we have done about 3 or 4 that just started. A very interesting one is taking place in Kosovo, and it's with an organization called Science for Change. I don't know, who of you has been in Kosovo? Even lived there? Just one? Well, if you get out of the airplane in Kosovo, then you experience a lot of air. Well, you experience it literally on your senses. It's a very bad situation. And this organization, Science for Change, has managed to come up with 30 youngsters that every week for 3 days, for 3 moments at that same day, go about the city doing accurate measurements to show just how bad it is. And then try to understand what they're doing and then also push the government for change. In Amsterdam, we are working with the cities that are most polluted. So they have been identified before by an environmental protection agency. And we work with them with low-cost open source sensors, but also with the National Institute for Public Health to be able to understand what those data mean and also empower the people to actually do something about that. And then finally, and not last but not least, in Barcelona, the IAC with other partners is trying to help a number of community champions to arise that know how to appropriate low-cost technologies, mainly the sensor kit, the smart sensor kit, and try to understand what it means, mobilize others, and then take appropriate action too. And that's happening right now. If you want to know more about it, I can tell you. What we're trying to do at this moment is to build a framework for bottom-up participatory sensing. And as we go, we publish about it on our website, www.makingsense.eu. We make open source software, open hardware, open technologies, and we try to learn from the experiments and come up with a meaningful way that can be implemented in any of your cities or also by yourselves if you want so. Meanwhile, we are trying to come up with principles that underlie these kind of projects that might be beneficial to other people trying to go into the same domain. And it's these, you can download them as well, of course, because it's quite a lot. But you can see that learning from these pilots, learning as we go, building on a host of open source software, open source hardware that's already existing, we try to turn people, citizens, into smart citizens, because we know and feel that you can only have a smart city when the smart citizens have the dominant role. And fortunately, many of you agree. So thank you very much. That's it. If you want anything more, let me know.
So thank you very much, Frank. So our next speaker is Mr. Josep Paradells. He's a professor of the Technical University of Catalonia, and he's the director of the I2CAT Foundation. And I will say that he's the guy that always brings the latest technology and that you always learn something that you had never heard about. So thank you, Josep, and come on.
Okay, and I have to add that Rosa is my friend, so you notice that. Okay, the first thing, okay, thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I want to comment something about some key issues that already appears in the previous presentations, something related to how we can get data, which are the alternative and which are the options. And in particular, I want to stress, in particular, one project that we are working that provides an alternative, one option in order to get this data, okay? So basically, we want to get data from the municipality, and we have different options. The traditional option, okay, is just to deploy a set of sensors in the city. Okay, another one is, for example, the one that we want to propose and want to explain in further detail, is just to use some mobile objects inside the city, vehicles, persons, okay, people, in order to collect some data. This is a different approach, okay? Also, we think that we can get data from the citizen activity. At present, we have some mechanisms to monitor some behavior of the citizen, and this can provide further and interesting data. And finally, I think that we can involve the citizen in order to provide some data. In some cases, it's just using, for example, an app. In some cases, for example, is to provide a channel to receive complaints, for example, on the behavior of the state, for example, of different infrastructure that we have in the city. Okay? So basically, the first approach that I have told that is a traditional one, it requires to deploy some sensors in the city. It needs to power them, it needs to cable, it needs to connect them. And even this is quite expensive in the city, and also they require some maintenance. So it means that in some cases you have to change the battery, we have to keep the system working. And the issue of this, apart from the fact that they are expensive, is that they are, in most of the cases, they are able to provide some localized information on some points. Okay, we don't have any clear idea of what is happening in the city. We have just some information about some points that can be relevant, that can provide information, but we don't have a clear view of what is happening there. Okay. Another option is just to use the behavior of the citizen as an indicator. Okay, I don't know. For example, we have information about the time that the buses arrive to the stations, to the different stops. This provides an idea of which is the congestion in the city. It is possible, for example, to count how many tickets in the parking area you have sold. And from this information, we can get an idea of which is the availability of parking places in the area. Okay? It is possible, for example, to monitor some social network activity. Twitter is, for example, a good example of this. Just to identify some topics and then identify where these messages are generated will give us a clear idea of something wrong it is happening. It is clear that these are indirect mechanisms to get data. We have to analyze and to process, and it requires some good analysis in order to derive some clear conclusions. Okay, and also it's something that we already have, it's something that we can use, so we cannot get all the status of the city with this information, so it is clear that we need something else. Another approach that also has been mentioned is basically to use our mobile phone for example, as a way to get some data. In some cases, this data can be obtained in an indirect manner. For example, you are using Google Maps. When you are using Google Maps, in addition to get some information about the traffic on the city, you are also providing some information to Google to increase the precision of the information, okay? So in this case, using this application, we provide some information that indirectly it is going to be used by us in order to improve, for example, the status, the knowledge about the status on the road, okay? It is possible to use, for example, the initiative of the Smart Citizen is a very good idea. The citizen can deploy this equipment and can provide information. It is information that can be useful by the citizen itself, but also can be useful for the remaining of the community. Okay. Also, most of the municipalities have some ways to, for example, to receive complaints, suggestions, and even alerts. And also, this will provide some clear information of if something is not working correct. And also, there are some collaboration tools. There are, for example, you can, for example, publish if an accident has occurred in a road, and this information can be accessible to all the users that, for example, share the same application. This is another way of notifying some problems. In some cases, for example, this mechanism is much faster than, for example, the mechanisms that the municipalities has deployed itself in order to notify if they have any alarm. Okay, so in addition to that, we have been working in a different approach that we think that can complement and can cover some of the issues that we have identified in the previous solutions. The idea is just to use some mobile objects as a way to monitor and also to get data, to fetch data about the status of the city. Okay? The idea is that in the city we have some vehicles that more or less are following some regular routes, like, for example, buses and, for example, trucks collecting the rubbish, for example. And also we have some other vehicles, like, for example, taxis, that are more or less moving in the city in a random manner that can move more or less in all the places that we have in the city. So they can collect not a particular view of the city, they can collect a general view of what is happening, okay? In this case, for example, deploying some sensors in this equipment is something quite interesting, because when you want to deploy a sensor, it is not needed to go to the street in order to deploy that. You just have to wait until, for example, the bus arrives at the night on the parking place, and then to install the sensor. And if you know if there is any issue, for example, you can try to solve the issue sometime later. So in terms of maintenance and in terms of installation, is a very interesting solution. And the good thing is that the vision that they get is not a local vision, they get a general vision, and this is something quite interesting. We have applied this idea in a couple of projects. One project is the one that we have at present that is called, this is a lighthouse project that is called Grow Smarter, that has the participation of the Barcelona municipality together with other companies, Stockholm and also in Cologne. And for this project, we have developed a device that can be put in an electrical bike, okay, that it is going to be used for distributing the goods in the super islands. This is the concept of closing some part of the city to the normal traffic, and then to allow, for example, some vehicles, in this case, electrical vehicles, to distribute the goods inside. In the project, they wanted to identify which is the impact in terms of pollution, in terms of environmental conditions, on the fact that we have the super islands. And with the approach that we are proposing, basically consists on putting in the vehicles that are intended to do this distribution, these vehicles are collecting the items just on the borders of the super island, and they are moving inside the super island. So they can compare, for example, it is possible to know which is the environmental conditions in the border, just on the city, in the normal city, and then it is possible to see which are the environmental conditions inside the super island. In this case, we can notice which are the difference. The precision of the sensors, it is not needed to be very, very accurate, because we want to notice only differences. And with this simple way, we can monitor not only the difference, but also the environmental conditions on these super islands. Another project that we have done in the past is, for example, a project that we have done in San Vicent dels Horts. This is a village which is close to Barcelona. In this case, we put in a bus a device that is able, for example, to identify if there is any parking place on the street. and the bus is going through the street. We identify some parking places, and these parking places are being published. So people, it is true that we only are able to get some information about the path on the bus, but we can get, for example, a very easy way to get some information about the traffic, the parking places, without deploying any specific infrastructure. We know that it is very expensive. Okay, just to finish, okay, some conclusions. We want to stress that there are several sources of information that we can use, not only the conventional ones. The idea is just to try to combine the different sources. It is key issue to respect the privacy of the citizen, because we get some information. Some information can be also provided by the citizen, so it is interesting to be sure that we can respect that. It is also important to be sure and to combine the citizen, for example, in which way the data that he is providing or he's helping to obtain, it is going to be used, in order to be sure that it's going to be used for the benefit of the citizen. And also, it is clear that if we want to combine all this data, it will be needed to have some big data and also some analytics in order to derive some clear conclusion, in order to decide how to actuate, and, for example, which is the behavior, the status on the mechanisms that rule the behavior of the city. This is all what I wanted to explain. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I will be very pleased to answer.
So thank you very much. Now we will read the question received with the Ask and Vote application. If you have any additional questions, you can also stand up and make them. So we have only one question from Mr. Ryan Wouters, that he says, why integrating all apps in one? Isn't the problem of not being able to find the right applications fast a smartphone navigation problem? Grouping? I guess that's for you.
What we realized is that, for example, let me give you a concrete example. There's one application we have which is called How Do I Get There?, which is an application that tells you how to use public transportation, combining subway with public buses and everything to go from point A to point B. There's 1.8 million downloads of that application that was built by the government. We have other applications that only have 20,000 downloads, which we know that basically people are not aware of, and that it would benefit their lives a lot more if they knew how to use it. So one of the things we're saying is we want to have one single application that is called MiBA, My BA, My Buenos Aires, and then you will be able to define, when you set it up, the kind of criteria of what is important to you. So are you pregnant? No. Okay. Do you need vaccines? Do you need to keep track of your vaccines? No, I don't have any children and I don't need it. Okay, do you use public transportation? No. And then based on that profile, we will be able to set up a menu for you that would allow you to know exactly what you need and what are the relevant applications you need to use. That is the way we believe we're going to increase adoption, stickiness, and relevance. Otherwise, we have the perception that people have the sense that we have too many applications and they don't really understand why this is useful. So we're trying to organize all the data. We're trying to have a single source of database for all the citizens. Today we have probably around 20 databases that claim that they have all the relevant information of the citizens. We're trying to have a single database from which we can have all the information. And once I know, for example, that you use the public bike transportation system, then I can do cross data mining and I can start using that information to be able to offer other things to you based on the knowledge that you use the bike and you go to a public hospital. Now, if I have separate applications, it's harder for me to be able to cross-fertilize that information and use it to help the citizens even further. So that is why we're thinking of one single application.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any question from the floor? No? Well, I have a question, maybe for all of you. I think that to be an entrepreneur in a city council or in a public administration is an important challenge also. So I would like you to tell us which are the skills and the behaviors that you think that public workers have to develop?
I think it's challenging the status quo. I think people, at least what I was showing in terms of changing the office space, people started telling me I was totally crazy, and in fact that there was a high chance I would go to jail because I was affecting public premises of a government palace. That's basically what they told me. So they told me you're affecting public space of a government palace, and that is illegal, and you will go to jail. That's what they told me. So I went back to my team and I said, we only have a week before they prohibit any more changes for us to make all the changes we can make in 1 week. So if we're going to put the ping pong table, let's go get one right away. If we're going to paint the walls, do it now. So people came during the weekend to do it. And people started saying, you know, they're going to start robbing the ping pong rackets. They're going to start robbing the TVs. People started saying things that I said, no, if you create the right context, people would just enjoy being in an environment that is more friendlier to them than working in an old, ugly office building. And the best proof of that is that, and they started saying, people will start saying that you play ping pong all the time and you don't work. And I said, listen, we're going to give people slots of 15 minutes. You go, you give your ID, they give you the rackets, you go play 15 minutes, you come back, and you return the rackets and they give you your ID back. And it worked. I mean, it simply worked. So my sense is, so I have the perception that 10% of the public employees are motivated regardless of what you do. 10% cannot be motivated regardless of what you do. And 80% of the people can be motivated if you do something that creates a context for them to, to let their entrepreneurial spirit flourish. So that's really what I believe and we're trying to do in the city of Buenos Aires.
Is it on? Is that on? Do you hear me? Okay. I have a follow-up question, maybe, to actually both questions to you, because I wonder whether your entrepreneurial spirit and your non-relatedness to any department in the city is actually an advantage that enables you to be so progressive in the way how you go cross silos, cross categories, cross departments. And I'm saying that because I experience this in my own firm as I'm arriving there also as the other, as an academic. There are always histories, of course. We have all these histories with us, and there's nothing wrong with histories. We're all experts, which is also great, and we're all somewhat protective of the work we've done in the past. So, and I think what you're saying in the way of there's one single source of referential that you're trying to create in order to create a larger whole is very much aligned, as you know, with what I also promote. And I almost wonder whether it's necessary almost to get an outsider into the inside in order to enable that type of condition. And maybe that's also a question for the two of you, whether you experience something similar. I'm sure the academy has, I know this, has very similar conditions. So maybe to the audience of whether you experience it as well like that. So I felt almost that you as an entrepreneur and maybe me as an academic in a private setting, you now in a public setting, because we're the other, we can just go in and be fresh and think totally out of the box if you want. However, of course, we need to deal with the constraint system.
Yeah, well, two answers. Thank you for the question. First of all, we are an art, science, technology organization. And that means that we explicitly value the fact that you need artists, scientists, and technologists to be together to come up with meaningful innovations. So yes, we see that. That said, with that combination, we try to enter different fields. So we enter the healthcare field, the education field, the cultural heritage field, the government field. And also there we experience that it's easy to innovate when you're outside. However, it's hard to implement. It's very hard to implement. So you need people on the inside that are convinced. We call them change makers or makers of change, that you can then empower with your outside view, and then they can implement the changes. And without those insiders that are these makers of change, you don't get anywhere on the long run.
Okay, I just want to comment one thing is, for example, I am a professor at the university, and some years ago we launched a startup the startup now is closed. Okay, so I think that is much more difficult to be an entrepreneur than a professor. Okay, so
I think there's two principles that I'm trying to apply that to me is the difference between making it work or not making it work. The first one is I have an undersecretary of smart cities and innovation in my ministry, and my comment to him and to his team is always, I mean, if the other minister, the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Urban Development, the Minister of Education, is not as excited as we are to make this work, then this is not going to work. So if this is not a joint project with them, where they assign a project leader and we assign a project leader and we work together, then it's not going to work. And the second principle is this is not about being in the picture. So if we do a good job, they will want to be in the picture and they will want to have us be in the picture with them, but they have the priority. It's not us. Because if they believe that we're doing this for us, then they're not going to do it. They're going to try to do it themselves. They're going to fail, and we're going to get nowhere. So really the principle is always, okay, you go do it. We're going to support you. You're in the front line. We're going to help you. And then if you need me there, I'll be there. And that has proven to be a good way for people to say, hey, I mean, this guy can help us. I mean, really, they can help us come with some fresh ideas that we weren't thinking of. So I think it's a lot of ego management and a lot of being at the true, real service of other areas of government.
Can I ask a question? Because we've been talking a lot about your ways to change the government, which is, of course, very important and probably also very influential. And at the same time, I think we need to work with citizens in a similar fashion. Like we need to empower them to become part of the solutions, that we will not just select the solutions for them or help them to select, but on the other, much more, help them to make their own solutions and to implement their own solutions that then we or you as a government should adopt or at least sustain or help.
Well, the example of the eco park and the zoo, I think was a good example of that. We said, they asked us, what are you going to put there? If you want to take the animals out, what are you going to put instead? And we said, we don't know. I said, then why did you do it? He said, because we're going to ask the citizens to let us know what they would like to see there. And we had 51,000 projects. It was a lot. I mean, it was amazing. Now, for example, we are open for citizens' participation the decision on whether people could take their pets in the subway. Okay? Major issue. It became the national topic for a week. Everyone voting in against bringing your dog or in favor. Hundreds of thousands of people giving their opinion. And then we said, well, basically that is a lot. It wasn't about the topic itself. It was about the process of engaging people to feel that they were part of the system. So the outcome was 80% voted in favor.
So I think that we need to finish. So I would like to thank all the speakers. I think we've seen different approaches to engage the administration, the citizens, very nice technologies to use the 3D visualizations combined with simulations. Josep gave us also a nice overview of all the data collection options that we could use. So I think that we could be here one extra hour talking about this, and I will invite all of you to approach the speakers and ask them any questions you have. So thank you very much for being here, and see you in Buenos Aires, I hope.